I would say it a little more extreme, perhaps, that there actually is only one cause for every health condition or disease and even death.
Welcome to the Regenerative Warrior Podcast, Doctor's Edition, one of the fastest growing regenerative medicine and anti-aging podcasts in the world. Each and every Tuesday and Thursday, I talk to the top experts to show doctors how to market, manage, and magnify their practice to help more people and make more money. Each episode is short and to the point without wasting your time with pointless conversation. Learn the skills to be successful without traveling to seminars or paying for expensive consulting fees. Are you ready? Because I am. I'm Dr. Ross Carter, and it's time to start the Regenerative Warrior Podcast now.
Before we begin, one of our podcast partners has just announced special pricing for our listeners. Wharton's Jelly Live Cell Cord Tissue for $475 per cc. You heard that right, only $475. It has a 90% viability rate, and white papers are available. This is a limited time, so act now. Why pay double or triple the price from other providers? To learn more or to order, text your name and the word stem cell to 561-962-1231. That's 561-962-1231. On with the show. Welcome to the Regenerative Warrior Podcast. My name is Dr. Ross Carter, and I have a special guest today. His name is Ray Gebauer. Welcome, Ray. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really happy and feeling honored and privileged to be on your podcast with you. So thanks.
Well, thanks for being here. So you have an interesting topic today, and basically you say that there's really primarily one cause for pretty much all of our health problems. Is that accurate? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. In fact, I would say it a little more extreme, perhaps, that there actually is only one cause for every health condition or disease and even death.
Wow. That's a big claim. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us what you believe the cause and how that can help us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a healthy 67 years old, and I live in Vancouver, Washington. I've been in the health industry for 42 years. I'm an author of 10 books on health. I'm a holistic health doctor, though not licensed. I've worked with a lot of other doctors, MDs, and chiropractors, and so I've been certified in a number of ways, different courses. I'm also a professor at Kingdom Life University and a PhD candidate in theology and health strategies. My passion in life is to make a difference, to help people. I'm not a salesman. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I love educating people so they can make better choices to enrich their life, and if they have challenges, so they can more intelligently make better decisions to get their health back, feel better, and live longer. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Everybody wants to, be healthier and live longer. So tell us a little bit about, what your revelation, I guess you could call it, is on what's causing everybody to become sick. And also, obviously, we want to know the solution. So what would you say that is?
Yeah, I think I have a real clear understanding of the cause and the solution. There's a cause and a cure. And because of my background, particularly in mathematics and physics, I was going to get my PhD in nuclear physics at one point, and then I went a different direction, and I still follow quantum physics. So I like the idea of having a unified theory of how everything fits together, as opposed to doing things piecemeal. Oh, we got to do this, and maybe we should do this too, and they're like isolated concepts. And what I've come up with is, I think, a pretty practical and pretty true, a unified theory of what causes all these problems and what you can do about it to reverse it. So here's my idea. And I don't know, I might be wrong, but, I think it makes sense. And most people hear it, they say, oh, yeah, that does make sense. So there's a lot of talk about stress. And usually stress is framed as a bad thing. And I say stress is actually a good thing. What doesn't kill you can make you stronger, but it can kill you too if you get to stress overload. So what my conclusion is, and my idea is, that stress is not the problem. It can actually be our ally, but stress overload, that's the problem. And that's what leads to breakdown, disease, and death. Now, it's easy to assume that I'm talking about just psychological stress, but that's really only one of 5 kinds of stress. And for some people, the psychological stress, that can be, the weak link that breaks it, takes them down that slippery slope. But for other people, it's not psychological stress at all. It's one of those other 4. And so it's the combination, the cumulative effect of stress from those 5 different sources that add up that can push somebody over the edge. So those have to be identified and lowered in the stress because of the total, the cumulative effect of those 5 kinds of stresses.
Okay, got it. So there's 5 kinds of stress. And the first one you mentioned was psychological, correct?
Yeah. And for some people, that's the most important. Some people, that's the least important. It depends on their lifestyle. And another way of saying, talk about the cure, actually, would be it's a healthy lifestyle. But it has to address these 5 areas. So as far as psychological stress, that includes getting stuck in certain emotions, none of which these are bad, is just staying in them too long and stress overload, whether it's anger or resentment or unforgiveness, or maybe it's anxiety and fear. A lot of people, most people are pretty much a DUI. They're driving under the influence of fear, which includes worry and doubt and lack of confidence, not feeling important, or it could be depression. So all those things can be really damaging long term. Also, more passive kinds of psychological stress, like not having purpose in life. There's a study that found that the people who didn't have purpose in life had a 50% greater chance of having a stroke. And many of the studies have found that arguably the single biggest factor in longevity and health isn't nutrition at all. It's social connectivity. It's talking and connecting with people, and that appears to have the biggest impact, healthy, positive impact, more than anything else. That's to say the other factors are important too, but if you're missing that, and that could be the missing link, the stress you have from not having that, as well as, the more aggressive, extreme things like physical abuse or sexual abuse, trauma or neglect. All of those things add up cumulatively to weaken the person, their immune system. And if you get too weak, your body just gets to the point where you can't compensate anymore, and you basically become sitting duck for some disease that's going to show it in your weakest link in your body, whether it's just having a stroke or heart attack. And it's just horrific these days that 80% of people in America already have diabetes. That's counting the pre-diabetics. They're actually diabetic. And half the people get cancer. In fact, I'm battling cancer, and so are you and everyone else. We all have cancer every day, but that's not really a problem as long as your immune system's strong enough. If when it gets out of control, then it's a problem. It's like not a problem having fire in your house, but if it's in your fireplace where it belongs, but if it gets out of control, it goes up the curtains, like, geez, the whole house could burn down. So anyway, so psychological, yeah, it could ruin the whole day. 80% of people are overweight. That creates a lot of inflammation and other problems, hormonal imbalances. 70% of people already have some stage of heart disease. Anyway, so moving on. So that's one of the sources of stress. That's probably the most obvious one.
Right.
Yeah, psychological, emotional stress. But also, you could die from other kinds of stresses or get a disease or crippled, like physical stress. Like if someone pushes you down the stairs or throws you out of the car at 80 miles an hour, or you fall out of a plane, or you're in a car accident. Those are all forms of physical stress.
Right.
If you break your back, or break any bone, that's physical stress, So that is one source of stress, and one source of stress by itself may not be enough, but adding all these together can push you over the edge. So that's, in fact, one of the major, most common sources of stress, physical stress, that affects probably 90% of the population, and most people are not really aware of that yet, is a passive form of physical stress of sitting too long. They found out, the studies have shown that even if you exercise 3 times a week vigorously, you can cancel basically those benefits if you sit too long. And you really shouldn't be sitting more than 30 minutes at a time. So if you're stuck in a job or something where you're sitting 6-8 hours a day, which the average American sits at least 8 hours a day, you need to get up every 30 minutes, at least for 30 seconds or a minute, and walk around, bounce up and down, go up and down the stairs, drink some water, and take a break. Because if you're sitting too long, the hormones start to shift, your metabolism starts to shift in not a healthy way. So that's one easy way
to do cigarette, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you read that too. Yeah, like sitting too long is worse than smoking cigarettes, which they used to think was fine. But you used to think now defining most sitting isn't really so fine either. I mean, for a while, so that's the second kind of stress. Psychological, good. Physical stress. Here's another big one that's really underestimated, and people are becoming more aware of it, fortunately, and that's electromagnetic stress. And some people are predicting that could be our undoing. Just a constant exposure to electromagnetic stress, which I'm getting a little bit right now on this cell phone, and Wi-Fi. Go see the dentist or you get X-rays, all of that adds up, that radiation. We get enough radiation from the sun, which is pretty much positive. We need more sunlight, actually. But it's more the artificial radiation that we're getting from the environment, man-made radiation. And so we got to be aware of that. Don't put your phone, don't carry it in your pocket, don't put it in your bra, don't put it over your heart. There's a lot of studies link it to getting brain cancer. And so it's a major contributing factor, and a lot of concern with the 5G coming out, going to make things even worse. So that's another major source of stress. And for some people, that could be a huge piece of the puzzle. And for some people, it's always a contributing factor.
Gotcha. Electromagnetic.
Yeah. Even being around, electricity, the wires in the house and the wires in the towers, all that contributes. So we have psychological, we got physical, we got electromagnetic. And the fourth one is, for some people, they're undoing. This is, for a lot of people, it's a huge factor for all of us. And some people, it's the major factor, and that's chemical stress. And there's two sources of chemicals in general. You have chemicals from the environment. They found that people who live in cities, have like twice as much of diseases and early death. It's from the pollution in the air or just lack of social connectivity. But, pollution, we know if you live in cities, you don't live as long. Pollution in the water. People take that too casually. And I like to say over and over, if you're too casual, you become a casualty in all these areas. If you're driving your car, if you're too casual, you can become a casualty. Same thing with your health. So chemicals on the food, the pesticides, that's really a bad thing. So you got to buy organic or use baking soda, soak stuff in baking soda, which appears to be the best way to get rid of it yourself. It's not organic. All the chemicals in like shampoos and conditioners and dryer sheets you put in the dryer, those are chemicals that contribute to cancer. A sunscreen, no one who really understood the science would ever use sunscreen again because it has cancer-causing chemicals. So we got to reduce the load of chemicals because it's killing us. Some people say, you're not really sick, you're just toxic.
Sorry for the interruption. To find out more about this speaker or to learn more about coaching, consulting, stem cell products, exosomes, supplements, legal help, or how to become a #1 best-selling author in 90 days, we're here to help you. Just text your name with whatever you're interested in to this number, 561-962-1231. That's 561-962-1231. Hey, don't forget about our Warden's Jelly special for $475. On with the show.
One of the major sources of chemicals is from the outside, and people take it too casually because everyone's doing it. Like 90% of people use those dryer sheets to keep the clothes from having wrinkles, and they don't know they're adding to the load of chemicals, cancer-causing chemicals. And people don't seem to realize or care that there's chlorine in the water, and fluoride, and at least a couple hundred other chemicals, including residue of pharmaceutical drugs and all sorts of stuff. Heavy metals, 80% of the population has an overload of mercury and lead, and they got to get the lead out and other things, and there's ways to do that. So that is another huge contributor to stress overload, chemical stress.
And thousands of them that we're exposed to. There's just so many.
It's another emerging huge problem, the GMOs. That creates a huge negative impact as chemical stress. Now, the other kind of chemical stress is the enemy within. The body naturally creates chemicals in its natural processes, but that can overload the system too, especially if someone has too much fat. Because fat isn't just in this substance, like carrying a bag of bricks or sand. It actually is alive and active and secreting chemicals that trigger inflammation and increase the size of the holes in the gut, which is another source of chemical stress, which virtually 100% of people have holes in the gut, and 70% of the population are classified as having leaky gut syndrome. So what that means is that some of what's supposed to all be going in the toilet, some of it's leaking back into the body. Not a pretty picture. So the body, to protect itself, does the smartest, most intelligent thing it can, is creates inflammation. Well, thank God it does that, because it can save you from dying. But the long-term inflammation is the root cause of most diseases, whether it's Alzheimer's or strokes or heart attacks, cancer, diabetes. Inflammation is behind all those things. And so we've got to get inflammation down, like people are becoming more aware of that. But just the chemicals our bodies are producing, especially from excess fat, is a major source of chemical overload, as well as the holes in the gut that have got to be addressed, because a lot of people say disease starts in the colon. You got to address that, and having the right bacteria in there and all that. Any comments or questions on that?
No, so far I've got psychological, physical, electromagnetic, and chemical. So that's 4. You got one more.
Yeah, that's 4 and one more. And this is a biggie too. This is the one that's probably people are most aware of, and still most people don't take it seriously enough, or otherwise they'd be living differently. It's sort of sometimes it's referred to as suicide by force. People are killing themselves by not getting enough proper nutrition. 90% of the population is eating way too much junk food and processed food, and too much cooked food, not enough raw food, and just not enough variety. And so the most critical nutrient is the one that's most missing. Well, let me back up a second. I should have said this first. So how I describe this 5th category is deficiency-based stress. So if you're deficient in something that the body absolutely needs, then that's a setup for a breakdown. And breakdown leads to diseases and death. So the deficiency could be, it's pretty broad. It's way beyond just nutritional deficiencies. Now, for a lot of people, it's deficiency in sleep. Let's start there. If you don't get enough sleep, the body doesn't have time to regenerate and cleanse itself. You got to get at least 7-8 hours of sleep, because if you don't, all the studies show you're not going to live as long, and you're more likely to get heart disease and cancer and diabetes and all these bad things. So that's a critical area. If you don't get enough sunlight, and vitamin D can make up for that somewhat, but not entirely, you need to get at least 20, 30 minutes a day of sunlight. Actually, ideally as much as you can, as long as you don't get sunburned, then it stops. The benefits stop. That can be damaging. And don't use sunscreen, but you need enough sun. Most people won't get enough sunlight. Most people don't have enough time connecting in nature. We should be walking more. They don't get enough walking. Most people are not really well connected. They might have 5,000 friends on Facebook, but how much depth is there really in those connections? They're all pretty shallow, and it gives you a false sense of connection, but it doesn't really feed the soul. So there's a deficiency there in social connectivity. So anything that you're deficient in causes stress. If you don't have purpose, if you don't have a reason to be happy, those are all contributing factors to stress. And then as part of that deficiency problem is nutritional deficiencies. These things are not luxury items. If you don't get enough vitamin C, or if you don't get any vitamin C, 100% of the time you get weak, you get scurvy, and then you die. 90% of the time, 100% of the time. You don't get any salt. Ideally, you want Himalayan salt. If you don't get any salt, you get weak, and then you get something breaks down, and you're going to die eventually. So, but there's a lot of things like that. You need to have more magnesium. 80% of people are low in magnesium, selenium. There's certain immune factors, some of which you can get in plants and some you cannot get in plants. One of my favorite foods that I use myself and I recommend has over 95 immune factors and 87 growth factors and transfer factors you can get in plants. So people are missing critical nutrients, and because they're missing them, their body becomes weaker, they're more susceptible to getting cancer, which 20,000 people die every day just from cancer, and it's a setup for a disaster. And 90% of the people die before their time. In fact, there's a verse from King Solomon I like to sort of throw in people's faces nicely, sort of brutal. It says, "Don't be a fool. Why should you die before your time?" And then he said something else in Proverbs. He said, "He who does not endeavor to heal himself is a brother to him who commits suicide." So the most people don't take this seriously. It's like they're all on the Titanic. This is a wonderful luxury trip, and they don't realize that when the big ship hits the big chunk of ice, it doesn't end nice. And so metaphorically, it's like we're all on this Titanic, and everyone thinks everything is fine pretty much. And yeah, okay, we got aches and pains, we got headaches, or I get low energy, and no, but that's just normal for getting older. No, it's not normal. It means you're breaking down. You got to get off the Titanic before it hits the iceberg. And so that means lowering the stress overloads and start living a healthy lifestyle. So that's the cause of all diseases, stress overload from the combination of those 5 kinds of stresses, any one of which could put you over the edge, but usually it's a combination. So the cure for all diseases and death is to lower the stress overload to the point in as much as you can in those 5 categories so you are not past that tipping point that puts you over the edge. So saying in a positive way, the answer is a healthy lifestyle, not finding the latest, greatest supplement. It's not just exercise. It's not just purity in terms of chemicals. All those things are helpful, yeah, but it's like if you want to get a good grip on something, what's best, to have a couple of really strong fingers or to have all 5? To get a good grip, you need all 5 fingers. Same thing with a healthy lifestyle. I'm saying you need all 5 of these factors. You have to address those 5 factors, sources of stress overload, and make sure you're handling it best you can all 5 of those.
Right, because we are only as strong as our weakest link, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But most people don't think of it in terms of, we have these 5 basic links, these 5 sources of stress that are weakening us and poisoning us and pushing us toward the edge of the cliff. And they're sort of oblivious to it. And people are, in general, maybe not the people listening to this podcast, but the general population, almost half of them are on some kind of drug, prescription medication. But most of them are just way too casual. And in a sense, let me say this, it's not their fault. And they don't really have a choice. People have to do what they're doing. They're eating junk food every day and donuts and all this stuff. In one sense, they don't have a choice. That's their programming. And everything I do, you do, we all do is based and limited to our programming. So we're stuck. The only way of escape is to change the programming. And part of that is what I do. I educate people so they can say, "Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow. But I guess I should take this more seriously." And so that's the only, you got to deprogram and reprogram. Otherwise, people live in this false sense of security. Like, well, if everyone else is doing this, everyone else is eating donuts, everyone else is eating junk food, and so it can't be that bad. Well, yeah, it can be that bad. Look at the evidence. 1,000 people die every day just from prescription drugs taken as prescribed. And a couple million are permanently or partially disabled and hospitalized from prescription drugs. And sometimes they have their place, and a medication can save your life in a crisis. But, that's another contributing source of chemical overload and poisoning. So people have a false sense of security because they see what everyone else is doing. That's their programming. That's what they're brainwashed through the media and the television programs, most of the movies. So if you got cancer, what do? Obviously, you do what the doctor says. You go get chemotherapy and radiation as if that's the smartest thing you can do. And they have to do it because they don't know better. That's their program. They trust the doctor. And I say, the doctor is very intelligent and educated, So listen to him, learn what you can, but it's your life. You've got to make your own decision. Don't give your life over to somebody else and just blindly trust them. Get multiple opinions. Get educated yourself. And if you're in a position where people trust you, then you want to help them as much as possible and not just focus on one area. Well, I'm a nutritionist. I'm this or that. I'm a counselor. Well, all those things can help, but if you want to help have the maximum health and benefit, I say you got to address all 5 of those factors and help re-educate people so they realize, I got to get off this Titanic, because if I keep doing what everyone else does, I'm going to get what everyone else gets, which doesn't end well. Not a pretty picture.
True. Very true. Well, that's fascinating. I mean, I think you've explained it really clearly, and I've really never heard of them put together like that before, and that was a very good way to explain it. Very simple and easy to understand. So I really appreciate that, by the way. Now, you said you have published some books, and do these books pertain to this topic?
Yes, I have 10 books that I've written, and in the process of writing some more, and doing more and more videos. I just completed a 10-hour course for the Kingdom Life University. It's all on health, and that's going to be available pretty soon, not just for the students, but actually be available for free if you want to just audit or monitor the classes. But 2 of my books particularly address this very issue, and what I'd like to do right now is offer to anyone who's listening, especially if you're a medical professional, I will send you as a gift one of my books. The one is called, the title is 40 Ways to Kill Stress Before It Kills You in 60 Seconds or Less.
Okay,
so these are
good.
40 techniques that you can use in 60 seconds or less to reduce the stress overload, which is ultimately the big killer. It's the stress overload. So if someone can text me and send me their email address, and I'll send you the book, no obligation, so you have all the notes and the details.
What's your email? And we can just give that out, and that way people can contact you directly and email it. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be fine, yeah. So we can use Ray at addingvaluetoday.com.
Ray at addingvaluetoday.com.
Yeah, so that works. And just make a request for the free book. I'm offering today the 40 Ways to Kill Stress Before It Kills You. It's about 40 pages, exactly 40 pages actually, including the pictures. And I think it's really valuable. Of course, it's no value if you don't read it. It's a short read, and I go over everything I talked about on this and 40 things that you can do on top of that. And then also one other thing I'd offer is as an educational resource, if you are listening and interested in or curious as to what I particularly recommend in terms of a particular food. I'm not going to say what it is here, but in my 42 years of experience, this is the most extraordinary food where people see results often within 30 minutes or the first day or two. Phenomenal, life-changing results that many people are off their medications, they get their life back, and it's a simple food that most people are not taking advantage of, which is a tragedy.
Beautiful. And so, they can get that if they email you as well? Is that correct?
Yes, they request that, or they can go to my site. It's actually my blog site. I have an article where I have a health survey and 3 short videos I made explaining the benefits of this, and then the 4th was the doctor. So it's gotagoodstory.com. So just like saying, I got a good story, there's no I in it. Gotagoodstory.com. So I explain the benefits in the sort of story format, and then there's a 10-minute educational video done by a doctor, probably the most expert doctor in the world on this particular special food that I think everybody should be using. It's inexpensive, and it made a huge difference for me. I saw some huge problems disappear quickly. It's like, you got to be kidding me, So it's one of those kind of things. So anyway, so I'm here to educate people, and if someone has questions or they want my free book, just email me or even call me.
Beautiful. All right, Ray, it was a pleasure speaking with you, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me on the program, and I wish you and all the listeners all the best. And for all of you, may the rest of your life be the best of your life, and I hope this empowers you to help patients more effectively as well.
That's all the time we have. If you're looking for the best companies for stem cell products, exosomes, marketing, consulting, or other products and services, please call us at 866-9-WARRIOR for the best options. Mention this podcast for special pricing and offers. That's 866-9-WARRIOR or 866-992-7746. Also, you can click the subscribe button below to be notified of all new episodes, and please like and share this podcast with others. If you found value in this episode, please comment and review. That'll help this podcast grow. If you'd like to learn more about this or any other speaker, click on the show notes or visit us at regenerativewarrior.com. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, we'd love to have you. Just go to our website and click the application link. You can contact me at Dr. Ross Carter at regenerativewarrior.com with show ideas, or if you'd like me to present at your event. Until next time, this is Dr. Ross Carter, signing off.